Everyone knows the story of Medusa, a monster with snakes for hair and eyes so terrifying that a single glance turned any living creature to stone. A creature so dangerous that even the gods refused to look at her directly. A beast that was eventually hunted down and beheaded by the hero Perseus, who used her severed head as a weapon against his enemies. Everyone knows that story, but almost no one knows the truth, because Medusa was not always a monster. She was not born with snakes for hair or stone-cold eyes. She was not created by darkness or born from evil. She was something far more dangerous in the eyes of the ancient world. She was a beautiful woman, and that beauty is exactly what destroyed her. This is the real story of Medusa, and it is not the story you were told. In the beginning, Medusa was one of three sisters known as the Gorgons. Her sisters were Stheno and Euryale, both immortal, both fearsome in their own right. But Medusa was different from her sisters in one crucial way. She was mortal. In a family of monsters, she was the only one who could bleed, the only one who could die, and the only one who had once been something entirely different. Before she became the creature that haunted nightmares and turned heroes to stone, Medusa was a priestess. She served in the temple of Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. The temple was sacred, a place of devotion and discipline, and Medusa had dedicated her life to serving the goddess faithfully. She was known throughout Greece not for terror but for beauty. Her hair in particular was said to be extraordinary dark, flowing, the kind of beauty that people traveled miles just to witness, and that beauty attracted the wrong kind of attention. Poseidon, god of the sea and brother of Zeus, saw Medusa and wanted her. He was a god of enormous power and almost no restraint, and the fact that she had dedicated herself to the goddess Athena meant nothing to him. He pursued her into the sacred temple itself and violated her within its walls, in the place she had devoted her life to protecting. In the house of the goddess she had served with everything she had. And then Athena found out. What happened next is the part of the story that has been debated for thousands of years. Athena, goddess of wisdom, goddess of justice, looked at what had happened in her temple and made a decision. She punished Medusa, the woman who had been violated in her own sacred space, the priestess who had served her faithfully and done nothing wrong. Athena transformed Medusa completely. The beautiful hair that Poseidon had admired became a writhing mass of venomous snakes. The eyes that had once drawn people closer now turned anyone who met her gaze into cold, lifeless stone. Her face, once radiant, became so terrifying that no living creature could look at it and survive. She was exiled to the edge of the world, to a desolate island at the end of the earth, where she lived alone, surrounded by the stone statues of those unfortunate enough to have found her. For centuries, people have asked why. Why would Athena punish the victim instead of the one who had committed the crime? Why transform the woman and leave Poseidon untouched? Some say Athena was furious that her sacred temple had been desecrated and needed someone to punish, and Medusa was the easier target. Poseidon was her uncle, a god of equal power, someone she could not touch without starting a war among the Olympians. Medusa was mortal, powerless, alone. The punishment was unjust, but the ancient world rarely concerned itself with justice for women. Others say Athena was protecting Medusa in the only way she knew how, by making her terrifying, by giving her the power to destroy anyone who came near her. Athena ensured that no one would ever be able to hurt her again, that the transformation was not a punishment but a shield, that the snakes and the stone gaze were armor for a woman who had been left completely defenseless. The truth is probably somewhere between the two. And the truth is that Medusa spent the rest of her existence alone on that island, neither fully monster nor fully human, carrying a power she never asked for in a body she never chose, until Perseus came. Perseus was the son of Zeus, raised by his mother in poverty after his grandfather attempted to have them both killed. He was brave and resourceful and completely in over his head when King Polydectes sent him on what was meant to be an impossible mission to bring back the head of Medusa. The king expected Perseus to die. Instead, Perseus received help from the gods themselves. Athena gave him a polished bronze shield so reflective it worked like a mirror. Hermes gave him a curved blade sharp enough to cut through anything. The nymphs provided him with winged sandals to fly, a magical bag to carry the head, and a helmet of invisibility to approach unseen. Perseus was not facing Medusa alone. He was facing her with the full backing of Olympus. He flew to the island at the edge of the world and found her sleeping. He did not look at her directly. He watched her reflection in the polished shield, approached carefully, and brought the blade down in a single stroke. The head of Medusa fell, and from the blood that spilled onto the ground rose two creatures that no one expected: Pegasus, the magnificent winged horse, and Chrysaor, a golden giant, both children of Poseidon, both born in the moment of her death. Perseus placed her head in the magical bag and fled before her immortal sisters, Stheno and Uriel, could catch him. Even in death, Medusa's gaze retained its power. Even severed from her body, her eyes could still turn the living to stone. Perseus used the head as a weapon multiple times on his journey home, including to defeat the sea monster that threatened Andromeda, the woman who would become his wife. Eventually, the head was given to Athena, who placed it at the center of her shield and her breastplate, where it remained for eternity. The face of the woman who had served her, the face of the woman she had transformed, the face of Medusa, now a permanent symbol of divine power and protection, worn by the goddess who had condemned her. There is something deeply uncomfortable about the story of Medusa when you understand all of it. She was wronged. She was punished for being wronged. She was hunted down and killed for a power she never wanted. And then her face was worn as a trophy by the goddess who had destroyed her life in the first place. And yet, across thousands of years of history, Medusa has never been forgotten. Her image appears on temples, on armor, on coins, on the walls of ancient buildings, not as a warning, not only as a monster, but as something more complicated than that. A symbol of power, a symbol of transformation, a symbol of what happens when beauty and violence and injustice collide. She was mortal in a world of immortals. She was powerless in a world ruled by gods. She was a woman in a world that had no interest in protecting her, and she still turned kings to stone. The real story of Medusa is not a story about a monster. It is a story about what the world does to those it decides to make into monsters, and why, thousands of years later, we are still drawn to her face. Because there is something in all of us that recognizes her. Not the snakes, not the stone gaze, but the part underneath all of that. The part that was something else entirely. Once, before the world decided what she was going to be. That is the real Medusa. And now you know her story.